Hello and welcome back to the stream. I am Junchan and a little bit of a change today. Well, first of all, I'm streaming sort of outside of my regular hours, and I see that my bitrate says it's unstable, that there's a poor network connection detected. So I hope that's not too bad. Maybe let me bring up stream in another window and see whether it's bad or not. Network connection detected. So I hope that's not too bad. It looks decent. So let's carry on. Yeah, as I was saying, a little bit of a change here because I realized that for the past 2 or 3 streams in our Purescript series, we haven't been really building the chronophore data structure anymore. So title was a little bit misleading, so I've changed the title to Purescript Collaborative Text Editing Prototype, right? So we're now, we go back to improving our chronophore data structure, but I think we're now more focused on Purescript SDOM library, and this prototype. So not doc test, but yeah, the SDOM library. And yeah, also yesterday I was saying how, you know, I might try and do the problem solving and try and, you know, because we've been bumping into this basically same obstacle for now, like 2 whole streams or something. And I felt a bit bad about, you know, just being on stream struggling, but I've changed my mind. I'm not going to do this off screen. I mean, you know, it is part of why I'm streaming, and I think, you know, that's part of working and learning in the open. It's just hard, actually. It might be harder because it's in the open, to be honest, but that's not a reason to stop. So I'll just continue, and rather than, you know, doing this, trying to fix things offline, I'll do it online. A little bit of courage here. Okay, and the courage to sort of, you know, it's a bit strong to say ridicule myself, but let's say at least, you know, show vulnerability, right? So, but that's exactly when you want courage, isn't it? Okay, so let's dive into it. So I did a little bit of a change yesterday. I thought, oh, how about if I change the type of the top level component such that it contains the ops? Is that going to change anything? Because then I get past ops. Well, actually, let me really explain what my reasoning path was in a little more detail. I was looking at the documentation for attach, and it says the push function allows the caller to provide additional model updates which do not arise from user-generated events. And so that's, I think, what really do not arise from user-generated events means do not arise from component tree generated events, things that would happen inside the editor or text or whatnot. And I think that's exactly what we want for the receiving callback, meaning when and looking at the type for it, like basically pushing will wrap the event in a write and then pass it to push new model, which is exactly what happens when the same thing that happens when some event is generated from inside the component tree. So I think that's exactly what we want for receive callback. We want to attach it, and basically it will look like something like we get that push. Well, actually, no, yeah, I actually haven't started really implementing this. Right now, what we have here is this create event, which creates a whole new event, whereas we actually want to get the push from the attach here. And then from that push, we'll be able to basically, I think, hook up the receive call the receive function and call it at the once to register the push callback, so that each time we receive something, then push is going to be called by our shell, by the end of the world, so to speak. I mean, let me explain that a little bit. There's a common design pattern, which is that you have a pure core and sort of an imperative shell. And sometimes it's even extended by some middle layer that's like kind of the usually your monad transformer stack, stuff like that, which basically translate like these pure languages that usually also is the realm of DSLs into something that can be understood by the outside world, which is where imperative shell touches the outside world. So here, if we do some kind of WebSocket callback where even our JavaScript code is going to call us, then that happens in the shell. And then, so we would attach this sort of at the top in the main component. We'd basically say, okay, we attach this receive callback that would be from a WebSocket, and we pass it some function that is sort of inside the bottom of our middle layer. And then that gets called, and then that gets called by the shell, and then it sort of then falls back to being flowed inside the heart of our program, or the core, or the pure core of our program, by generating, in this case, this event that's going to change the model. And so I was like, okay, that's all great, but push new model really is meant to be dealing with a model to model function. So how are we going to even, so if we receive, oh, well, actually, now that I think a little bit more about it, maybe this was not necessarily needed, but because what my thinking is if we receive some ops from the outside world, then I thought, how are we going to do a log to log function? But now I see that actually that's in fact possible. We don't need to. I thought, okay, maybe we need to sort of stack the sort of store our ops on the side in the model, so that then they get interpreted. But now I realize, no, that's not needed. We could actually, we could deal with our ops in our callback, because receive will pass some ops, and then maybe we wouldn't pass push directly, would pass some wrapper around push that would well, we need to try, because now I'm a little bit wondering whether I'm right or not, or whether my first intuition or my second intuition is right about this. Because this right here feels like it's exactly the either that we want, to pass it a log to log function. And so that seems fairly similar to what we're trying to do all along, right? Which is to sort of have a log to log function that's able to that we can pass some ops to in order to append them. And well, in the case that we've been looking at for the past two streams is to then send the operation over the stream. And then what I'm talking about right now is that if we receive, then we do still want to pass those ops to our log to log function, so that we append those ops to the log to create the new version of our log. So, you know, I wonder whether actually trying to work on the receive side will allow us to take a small break, and maybe it will help actually sort of structure our thought, or structure on thinking. And plus, last time, you know, what we did just before we left the stream yesterday was that we also, you know, pulled down Purescript DOM, and then we started to add some tracing events, which allow us to sort of know what's going on inside. And because the thing that I couldn't figure out is, how does this event, if we were if we that's not in learn. In the when we do interval, we don't do interval anymore here, but remember that the pattern that was in the docs is to do this, which then it turns out then runs this function every, well, if we do 1,000 instead of 100, every second the that function will be ran. And I still don't understand how that works. And that's kind of what we want. We want something effectful, except we want it to depend on log. And I couldn't understand how then this flows back into this function and properly registers or subscribes to this event so that it gets ran multiple times. And it might be here that this happens, but or maybe by getting these events here, but I'm still not sure. So we need to introspect that a bit, but I think if we change our perspective, maybe it will help us go back to then the like user-generated event, the event that's generated from inside our component tree, and make that work. So let's try and do that. So first thing I said is that, well, we don't want to create a new event. We want to be using the push that comes from attach. And we don't need to, right now, we don't need to connect to detach. And so now we have a push. And I think also we're going to go back to not having this this record. I don't think we need that. We'll try first without it. And also just to show you what that entailed, that was also a way to test the perfunctor interface to the SDOM component, because it's actually, you can actually pass it, and I was quite happy with that. You can actually pass it a length. And you know what? I'm going to keep that code around because, I mean, it was fairly easy to write, but I'm going to keep it around because it's quite neat. I can pass it a length and the children component, and that allows the children component to be log. So it really is zooming into the log part of the parent state, and passing that passing only the log part of the parent state to the children state here. And that just worked, and that amazed me. That's one of the things that I really liked about CycleJS's approach, and they call it a lens. In fact, like that's in the state. That's in the state plugin. So is that going to be in the docs? State, cycle state. And this whole fractal approach also uses lenses, except that those JavaScript lenses, I tried this in my code and it wasn't as pleasant, obviously, because you don't, I mean, look at what you need to do to define lenses and whatnot. Here, like I'm actually able to do a sort of a type level matching of a lens, like in this simple way. I mean, now that I know how to read this, it's easy. And I mean, you gotta admit that it's fairly terse, and it could be even terser. I don't know if these days with a new type level feature with Purescript 0.14, whether that's going to be even terser. But yeah, let's take a look at this. sproxy Purescript 0.14 corporate library. Yeah, it would be polykines, but I'm not sure whether that actually, I think that's just a way to properly annotate types with kinds, which was not possible before, and therefore have some polymorphism in kinds, I think. But maybe then from there's new things that come out, but maybe not as anything related to sproxy quite. Well, sproxy seems to be mentioned here. Let's go check it out. Ah. probably going to keep the zoo proxy type, but deprecate them to avoid churn. So no, yeah, that will have an impact. I wonder whether we're going to be able to yeah, no, I think the polykind means that we can parameterize with a sproxy type parameter that is of kind star to star, whereas here sproxy is of kind star. Sorry, sproxy sim is of kind star. Whereas here, sproxy is of type star to star. And that means we can use polykinded proxy type. Interesting. Right, so now instead of having all of the symbol proxies and the functor proxy, I mean, all of the other proxies, we could use just the polykinded proxy type. So that's going to clean up that code, and we can do something like this. But we'll still need to do proxy. I mean, I think what we would want is some way to say, I think this basically, which is maybe it will need to be something like this in the future. And that is what type application. And I think Purescript and type applications, visible type application. And I think that the move towards polykinded polykinds will maybe help with that. But we don't have this yet, right? Okay, so I mean, oh, okay, well, yeah, right, exactly. Put sproxy, right? It wouldn't be put sproxy at Apple, I don't think. I think it would be at proxy Apple or something like that. And right, be referring to type application. Right, yeah, separating it from dependent types makes a lot of sense. Important for interacting with polykinds, and that's fairly recent. Oh, well, we would be able to do at foo. That would be pretty amazing. So then that would just reduce to at log, and that would be so nice. So let's hope we get there. Yeah, let's hard this. It would be so good. Maybe ask, does the 014 polykinds work gets us closer to visible type applications? But maybe interleaved with regular type variables. Oh, so then that means like you could put even channel somehow in here. So I think with Haskell you need like scope type variables for that or something like that. I mean, usually it's used for saying that, for instance, this channel here would be the same as a channel here or something like that. Interesting. Scoped. Syntax issue. Only vars quantified for type application can be type applied. Ah, right, okay. Oh, I see, I see. Interesting. So it would need to be specified up there. So it's slightly more work than I thought. Omitting an ambiguous at var results in a better error. Ambiguous type variable sim with kind symbol not applied. F and M, right, so I'll skip an application, I see. Or apply them by name. Huh. Ambiguous time variable sim with kind symbol not applied. Oh, I see. Yeah, so if we had announced the type application in the type signature but didn't use it, then it would be like, hey, you're supposed to provide us with something, and then we could skip it, but huh. So maybe I should ask how it will work for something like a perfunctor lens. Let's see. We did import data lenses here. No, we haven't. Import data.lens. And I need to Spago install lenses. Well, that's a bit strange. Oh, perfunctor lens. Sys? Yeah. And so we want something like what? Like foo of type foo string bar boolean and then foo equals foo and bar true, and then we'll have a quarks be string, and it would be quarks equals s proxy prop of s proxy foo Let's Sprago build. And then log show works. In fact, we could log it. Unknown value prop. That should, yeah, that has ends dot record. And then need to import bool and sproxy. Okay, I think this is the true we want. And there's a type I think we do want view maybe from data lens. And then we need some parentheses here. Yeah, I think I got it. Yeah. So what we want is something like at foo. What's the terminology here? Class heads. Explicit binder. We need to have an explicit binder. All right, I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. Right, so do we need to have an explicit binder here? And yeah. Okay. We did a thing. Okay, I'll go on for a little bit more. Let's go back to this and reestablish our old type, which means we don't need that lens. And we need to do the same thing here. It would be log to log. Our old nemesis log to log. And then here we're back to log and log and does this check? Right, so we don't have an event to subscribe to anymore here, but we can push things and then they would be wrapped into this right. So I suppose then that what we need to push is a log to log function. And in fact, what we really need, I think, is to say, to define a I think this should be something like listen and not receive. That's one thing. Just changing names, I find sometimes is very very useful to get my thoughts in order. Names are one of the hardest things in computer programming, as the saying goes, and it might be because of that, because thinking is one of the hardest thing in software programming. Okay, so but however, receive would be like the callback that we pass to listen, and it would be a function of log to log, such that what? Well, we kind of want, however we do it, we're back into this idea that we want some ops and log being passed. So it's that same type of transformation we've been stuck with, of this idea that we're trying to get from something that's an event of log to log into something and some ops into something that maybe is log ops to log. Maybe that's another way to look at it. Which then, by the way, reminds me of some of the stuff that we were looking at in the, what was it? Was it flap? Not in apply. Not an array. Representable was a dead end, at least in learning. Okay, so let's go back to pursuit and so void flap. That was, no, it's not that, right? Having an A? Well, yeah, no, it's not that. And it looks like it's also not apply, which maybe is closer, but not necessarily. there is something with, is it currying? Maybe that we're trying to do here? I don't know, but that's kind of the pattern, and I still don't know how to get there. And we pretty much stuck in the same place here, I think. Which is that I think our listen should be passing some ops to the function it receives. So which is exactly that. It passes some ops to the function it receives, except it's outputting an effect unit. And I think here we are in the effect monad, so we can do that, I think. And so how does this work? First of all, we don't do this anymore, nor that. And let's clean a bit. Okay, listen is of type this, such that receive now will be of type array op to effect unit. Which is totally fine. It's just that we need to push in the meantime. And push from here it doesn't tell us what the type of push is here. Yes, it's of type model to effect unit. So I think this is totally doable, especially the fact that we're now in the effect monad. I feel like that's all good, except that we're pushing something. What we want to push is this log-to-log function. And I suppose it's just what? Append. Append prime of ops and log, and is that it? This should be this push. We can't do it like this. So can we do it? Why isn't push? It needs to be a let. I mean, I suppose we could pass push if you want us to. That's not a big problem. And where? Well, we're not calling this anywhere, but Knamash type array. Oh, I think we need to do this. why do you want an array here? Oh, right. Push is model to effect unit. We'll put this in a parenthesis. Like this. Model is undefined. We could do log here. Let's do log. Array. Okay, I've reversed things. Okay, I'm confused again. Okay, we know we want to push this function from log to log. And we're trying to do this in such a way that when we do this push, we have ops in scope so that we can, and so these ops, we're supposed to receive you know what? There's no log here. And we're shadowing something? What are we shadowing? Oh, receive. We're shadowing receive. Oh, yeah, we need to, it's not receive. There's no such thing as receive. Holy moly, is that gonna break things? No. So that works. Okay, I'm super surprised that it works, but I've made this kind of thing work before, and it was a little bit tricky because there's this whole inversion of control happening. Plus here, the complexity that what we're passing along is actually an event of this state function. But okay, so how do we check that this works? First of all, we need to like maybe reload this. You cannot read properly read over undefined. So you must be trying to maybe what's going on? Right, this thing. So we could maybe just time it out. But I'm surprised. How come you get called? Yeah, no, that makes sense. You get called. Yeah. Absolutely, you get called. You get called, and then read is going to execute the callback each time it reads something. So we're going to pretend that we are executing the callback with some fake op. And we need to rebuild by hitting save here. And listen is not a function. Oh yeah, so that's the same thing that we had the other time, which is that there's an effect happening somewhere here. Okay, so supposedly what happened? Supposedly we attached our editor to the DOM. We got this push function to allow to push things into things. And then we passed receive push as a callback to main. So this is receive push. And then we called it with fake up. I mean, this should be an array of op, so I'm surprised we don't have an error message here. But can we call listen? No. Oh, right. I think we need to execute, because the callback that we receive is wrapped in an effect. So once we call it once to pass it array up, and then we call it a second time to execute the effect. Didn't expect non-singleton array of op. Wow, that looks like my error. Yes. So we just passed it something that wasn't an array op. So it tries to run append. So we're in pretty good shape here. I think we've got the receiving way correctly figured out. And clearly the struggle that we had with the log paid off here, because even though I was confused for a while, it seems that so first of all, like this concept that we're actually able to sort of somehow smuggle this ops we receive from outside inside the log function, the log-to-log function that we then emit as an event. I think that's probably the pattern that we want up there. Except that up there we have the added complexity that we want to run something effectful as well. And that's what we couldn't figure out. But at least we figured out this bit. I mean, I think now we could try to sort of output a fake op and pass this as a as an argument to our callback. So first of all, it could be something like that, but let's print alpha op p. Right. That's not the JavaScript representation of it. So we will do a fake like log that will take an op and return effect unit. And we'll export that. And we'll take that up and we'll return an effect, and I'll console log that up. And we are going to then log it like that. There we go. And then we'll, how do we do this? Right click, store as a global variable. And now we have it. And then I want to not only store it as a global variable, I want to maybe just console log it. Temp1. I think I want to JSON stringify it, actually. That's what I need to do. Stringify. And then I can use this in place of that fake op. And I think the array, JavaScript array, is directly a JavaScript, Purescript array, but we shall see whether that's true or not. Failed pattern match, so maybe not. So fine, we will log an array of alpha op then instead, and say that this will be an array op. Right, it looks a little bit different indeed. Okay, right click, store, and then I suppose we could have called our log underscore function, have it JSON stringify. No, it does look like that's what it's supposed to be. Okay, so what's the problem? You couldn't pattern match? Seems like you would pattern match right there, but okay, just for the sake of, or maybe I could JSON, maybe I need to convert it back. Yeah, of course I need to convert it back, yes. So what is that? JSON, it's not JSON read. How to convert back after JSON stringify, I forget. Parse. JSON.parse. Okay. Unexpected token O in JSON. Okay, there's some I don't see a token O right here. What parse anonymous? Okay, let's do a variable there, ops, and console log ops, const ops, count to const in I don't know what the problem is with this. It doesn't want to parse it. Oh, because it needs to be in a string. Yes, of course. Of course, of course. And therefore, what? Therefore, I need to escape those or simply remove them, I think will be also possible. And I could have used backticks and that would have been faster, so let's do that. And not here. Here. So ops is an array of what I think we want, but it fails to pattern match. Oh, in data fault core, data kernel fault core. So we went further. So interesting. So it could be because there's an issue here with how I'm serializing these ops. And, you know, we shouldn't really do things like this. But I think it's going to be important to know how we serialize and deserialize. Because obviously at some point we will actually serialize and deserialize. Even though now in this example we're not. And then it's going to be quite interesting to also look at run serialization formats, which are optimized exactly for that, except I know how, or let's say I don't know exactly how we can send kernel fault ops with the run serialization formats yet. But I think I can ask the author and find out. Okay, so that doesn't work. Is there a way we could fake it at another level instead of faking it in the JavaScript? Yeah, I suppose we could fake it here, right? So let's pass it alpha up instead. And so even though we push some up, we ignore it and we pass it this. And that seems to work. Yeah, P. Okay, awesome. So the way in, I mean, you know, modulo some work on serialization will work. I believe. We just need to hook up things and blah. But that's pretty awesome. So we just need to figure out that the way out. How do we emit such a thing? And then we'll be much closer to having a working prototype. So that's